Please be seated. Bishop Jonathan is going to visit us on the 19th of November, so it's good to put the day into our diary, the same time of Sunday Mass on the 19th of November. He will be teaching about the bishop's role, how he is a sign of Christ's love in the community. We shall be gathered around the bishop who presides at the Eucharist, through which Eucharistic celebration the community of Christ's love, the Church, is created and sustained. As a preparation for his visit, in the coming weeks, we are going to focus on another great sign, the sacrament of marriage. We'll see how closely the two, the bishop's role and the sacrament of marriage are related. Both of them are about our relationship with God. Perhaps you have noticed that it's been for weeks now that there is always a short passage at the very end of our Mass paper on page 3, entitled Parish Catechism. So in the coming week, please resume this text, Marriage in God's Plan. I'd just like to add a few notes to it. The family is the image of God's covenant with us. The first basic meaning of marriage is about on a personal level. It is ordered towards the good of the spouses and the procreation and education of offsprings. So marriage serves the husband and the wife, the spouses. Marriage is designed for bringing new life to the world and also the education of those children. As you can see, the well-being of the spouses and the education of the children also at least partially belongs to our local community, to the local Christian communities. God is the author of marriage. It is never a human institution, even if its legal forms changed a lot during the centuries. This desire to live in the community of love, this desire for marriage in us human beings is innate. It is written in the very nature of men and women. Our witness and our task as a Christian community is to keep this desire alive. And it doesn't matter what our marital status is or what our age is. Our basic vocation, one of our most important witnesses, is to keep this desire alive in the next generation, to pass it on them, to transplant it into our children. That it's a wonderful thing to meet someone who is different. It is a wonderful thing to fall in love, but even more wonderful to stay in love. This world, it is not terribly obvious that this desire for marriage, to live in a community, is not an option. It's not among the many, many choices. It is an ethical imperative, a categorical imperative, a divine order, and basically the imperative of passing on life, biological life and spiritual life. Without this, there is no continuation of life. So thinking about marriage is very important for all of us, regardless of marital state. In the news, the coming days will be dominated by the discussion of marriage. Just have an open ear to that and read and recall what I'm saying against that background, what changes can be expected. Marriage as a sacrament points far beyond itself. As our Catechism emphasizes, and this is a very important point, the well-being of the individual person and the well-being of society in general is closely bound up with the healthy state of conjugal love and family life. If we seem to live in a crazy world full of upheavals, we can trace it back. Maybe there is a crazy upheaval in family lives. Marriage is a difficult and very challenging way of life. Living in a loving relationship in whatever forms, this is the most challenging, most difficult thing in life. However, and this is what our Catechism emphasizes, and for next week the passage will be in our Mass paper. However difficult a marriage can be, even to breaking point of a relationship, God always gives the sufficient support to the parties. God always offers that help. Even if a marriage breaks down, had broken down long time ago, God still gives the grace to appreciate the years spent together, and for the sake of the children or without children, to reconcile, to admit the faults of the parties, and to ask for the conversion, for the well-being of the other party. So God always gives sufficient support. Christ's cross is always part of marriage. Christ's cross is always part of loving relationships. There is a tremendous sacrificial element in it. That is why it is so important that every Eucharistic celebration, every Holy Communion that we receive is about the celebration of life. Implicitly, it is always the celebration of passing on life. Implicitly, every Holy Communion, regardless of marital state, is always a celebration of the gift of marriage, the desire for passing on life, the desire to love and being loved. So why marriage is so important? Why are marriage to the church, or being the spouses of Christ, why is it so important? Why is it so important, the quality of it, the aliveness of this betrothedness, this commitment? Because God, who created us out of love, also calls us to love. This is the fundamental and innate vocation of every human being. Marriage is the blueprint of how God's covenant is offered to us. If God's love is unshakable and unchanging, never changing for us in the covenant. This human institution, marriage, is called to make an effort to imitate that faithfulness. And even if marriages fail in practice, the principle should never change. That marriage is between one man and one woman for the procreation of life, for passing on the life of culture, and to remain faithful. One man, one woman. This principle should never change, because it's a pointer, a signpost to God's covenant which never changes. And if we have marriages which fulfill this really high ideal, even if our marriage, my marriage failed, or fails, or is failing, there is always a cause to celebrate. That's why when we have children, families with young children, it's a wonderful celebration and a wonderful support, like being fans of a football club and praying for them that they could pass on the culture of love unharmed for their children. The marriage, human marriage alone, keeps the sense of the covenant alive. That is why changing the concept of marriage in the teaching of the Catholic Church is non-negotiable. However convenient it would be for me, for example, to chase women having a relationship without commitment, or if my relationship fails, just to jump into the next one without thinking, or if I have a husband or wife, why not cheating on them? Because marriage can be a living hell. Why not? But the concept of marriage is non-negotiable. Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it. Subdue it to love. Treat creation with love. Treat each other with love. And as you have noticed, I'm talking not only about marriage between a wife and a husband, but about marriage between you, your soul, and Christ, between our local community who is married to Christ. And it's a wonderful, wonderful encouragement. Even if human marriage and relationship can fail, our relationship, it's always a second and never failing chance with the covenant, with the God of the covenant. And a conclusion. Why is a commandment to keep the sacrament of marriage alive? Why it's so crucial? Because it is love only, which creates free choices in life. Those of you who had lived in marriage or lived in marriage or are living in marriage, you know that there are always situations when you have the experience that love can renew itself. There is always a new beginning. Marriage, committed loving relationship, is never about fate, that it must go downhill because we are fragile human beings. No, love creates free choices. And if we have a look at the images of war in our world, and this is the backdrop against which I'm emphasizing the importance of marriage. War is about the total breakdown of peace. War is a complete breakdown of the covenant between God and man. That's why there is no point to take sides in today's conflict. Actually, it's a sin to take sides unless we first admit that both waging side betrayed utterly their marriage to God, the principles of life. War is the most painful and total breakdown of family life. Think of its physical destruction. War is about the total breakdown of love, human and divine. When war breaks out, you cannot stop it till it takes its full destructive capacity. In marriage, there is always a chance to reconcile. Without love, without families, without the attempt to keep the culture of marriage alive, we are in the unchangeable iron grasp of faith. It is only love which creates chances. And as an illustration, I just would like to show two images. Yesterday I went to the garden. There was a beautiful shower, rain, and I started to paint in acrylic in the rain. With acrylic it's very difficult to paint when there's a pouring down rain because it washes away the paint. So I had to paint very quickly. And I was thinking about the role of art, which runs parallel with the role of marriage. That when a painter creates an image, is his painter's brush, led by fate, which determines if a painting succeeds or fails, or it is about free choices and love? And for me, painting illustrates the nature of the sacrament of love, marriage. Painting is always a dialogue with nature, landscape painting in particular, but every form of art. And it's always about choices, options, renewals. It's about beautiful colors, just as human love has beautiful colors. And if we compare the explosion of colors on a painter's canvas with the explosion of colors in war, as we can see it on screen, the same light, the same colors, like a sunset, similar, but we could never say that we can find a spectacular joy in the colors of war. War is painted by Satan, by fate. Christian life is painted by our response to Christ and to his teaching, which our Catechism illustrates. So let us cherish our covenant with God, which is our form of marriage for all of us. Let us cherish and appreciate married life and its fruits as the sign of God's unchangeable covenantal love towards all of us. By meditating over the points of our Parish Catechism, let it be our preparation for Bishop Jonathan's visit, as these two great signs of God's love, marriage and the role of a bishop and your role in the worshipping community, are so closely related.